All right, hey, this is Mr. Shore. We're going to go through real quick how to quickly keep track of all of the wonderful Stuco people that have been attending your meetings. So what you're seeing here is the final point system total from 2018-2019. This next one here is kind of what it looks like for 2019-2020, and if you're watching it 30 years from now, your form probably is going to look pretty similar. You've got some important pieces of information that you're going to need in order to make this successful. The first, obviously, is people's names, and the next is their S number. Those are going to be the two key pieces of information we're going to want here, because as we'll see, your scanner tracks people based on their S number. But obviously you don't know everybody's S number by heart, you know their names. And so what the Google Sheet's going to help us do is take their S number and give us their name, and it's going to do it for us really easily. So here's the spreadsheet from last year. In these rows here, this is a list of all of the numbers of people that went to that meeting. Where that came from is Miss McKenna or Miss England or whoever the wonderful sponsor of Stuco is at that point will have a list from the scanner that looks kind of like this. It might be a little bit more complicated. It might have their names or a date, but all you need is their S number. If it's got an S in it, you don't want that. You just want the 5-digit S number. From here, what you'll do is you'll just copy the list. I'm hitting Control-C. And then you'll make a new row. So it looks like here their last meeting was here for row L. So if you just here, insert one row to the left, right? You can go ahead and paste that in. So now the Google Sheet has a list of all the numbers of the people that were at the meeting, which is useful. And if you wanted to take a long time, you could then look through individually each of these numbers and find them one by one and give them a point. That takes a lot of time. Nobody's got time for that. So we're going to speed it up. What you can see is I've got this formula in here for this first sheet. And so this is linked to row F. And if you look back, or column F, there's a list of numbers in column F. And so what this formula is telling it to do is it's saying if the following is true, COUNTIF means that if this value is found in this cell and in this cell, give it a 1. If it's not, give it a 0. What this is literally asking it to do is saying, here, I pasted all of the values of the S numbers of everyone who went to the meeting in this column here, and it's scanning through that whole column. And if one of these numbers matches one of these numbers in the B column, it'll give that person a point. So for example, in the one I just posted in here, 28408, well, I can see that's Ishika right here. So what it'll do is it'll scan this B column. It'll say, oh, I found 28408. I know that belongs to Ishika, and it'll give her the point right here. So the formula is set up if, COUNTIF, and in theory, you should just be able to copy paste that formula. And as long as the rows stay the same, so again, the key row is row F is the first meeting, and row B is the row or the column which all the students' S numbers are always in. You'll notice for this meeting that they had later on in the year, it's changed in our formula to G because now it's looking at all of the numbers we've pasted into the G column. So all that was Miss McKenna or Miss England took that list from the scanner and copy pasted it just like we did into row M. They did that for that meeting into row G. And all they had to do was take our formula. If you see this little arrow here, if you drag it to the right, it'll take the formula and make it work for all the cells to the right. Likewise, when you make the formula, you can take that and spread it down, and it will stretch that formula out for all the cells down also. That is by far and away the most complicated part of this process. The key is this formula. So the 1819 spreadsheet has the correct formula. This spreadsheet works. So if there's ever a problem, the number one problem for really any programming, which this kind of is you made a typo. So you can see how it's spaced out here. Depending on the day and the mood of Google, if you don't have a space here, it might not work. If you don't have, or you have an extra space, or you don't include the dollar signs, then something might not work. So if you're ever having a problem at any point with Excel or Sheets, the number one thing to check for is, did I just make a dumb typo? Because it can really screw things up and it can be pretty maddening to find. So for that, it's pretty easy from there. So you can see they have it set up. So here's all their meetings, and you can see up there at my value sheet up at the top. So as I click on different meetings, it's got different columns because that's a different copy-pasted list that Miss McKenna or Miss England provided. right? So here it looks like they did a Chipotle fundraiser thing. And so again, if they use the scanner, same thing. They had a list and they just copy pasted it in there. So whenever you have the scanner or really just a list of any of the student numbers that showed up, you can use that formula and create a new column. So I created a new column for a fake meeting that we had the other day. And all I can do is take my sheet, right? Copy it, paste it in, and hit enter. Now you can see it's giving me a value because it still has the formula from over here. But remember, the N column is checking the F column, which was the list of cells from that meeting. We want it to check the M column because that's where we just posted the meeting. So right now, the one we added, instead of adding the people from the meeting we had the other day, it's looking back to this meeting from the F column, which it was in January. So to fix that really easily, all we have to do is instead of telling it to look in the F column, we want it to look in the F column. So I'm not changing my formula. I'm not touching the dollar signs. The only thing I'm changing is the F's to the M's. And you can see on my spreadsheet, it's highlighting it. It's saying, hey, are you sure you want to check this set of data? And I'll hit enter. And now it has gone from a 1 to a 0 because this person whose S number is 26827, that's not one of the 5 numbers on my list. So they don't deserve any points. Now we'll always double check to make sure my formula works. So Ishika, we know did. Here's her S number 28408. That's the first number on my list. So if this formula worked, when I spread this down, Ishika should have 1 point in the AC column. As you scroll down, you can see Ishika does. Maybe what happened here? Yeah. So what happened here was an error. I had it in a certain order and I shifted it. So instead of being alphabetical, it shifted it by S number. That will screw it up also. So it's actually good that I made this mistake, and we'll pretend that I did it on purpose. When I shifted it by S number, it was still checking the S numbers, but it was corresponding it to the wrong names. So somehow I should easily be able to sort this by last name. Yeah. And that's going to give it to us by last name or by first name. Okay. There we go. Okay. Crisis averted. We now have it sorted the way it was sorted before. And so now Ishika has her point. Up next, we see Tori. So there's her S number, 28831. And we can look at my list and we can see that 28831 is one of the ones that's there. Again, we can check later, right? This person, Katie, 29162. And that's one of my S numbers on the list too. So I've kind of confirmed that my formula works here. What I like to do is I like to check one towards the beginning of my sheet, towards the middle of the sheet, and towards the end of the sheet, and just make sure it works all the way through. So lastly, you'll see here, there's totals. So Stuco, you guys know, I'm sure, has different categories. So you've got points for going to meetings, you've got points for participating in your committees, and maybe some extra credit points along the way. And so the same process. And then what you can do for this meeting total, for example, as you keep accumulating meetings, instead of manually figuring it out, you can just tell Excel, hey, take the sum of that row for me. And I'll take the sum of it, and it'll put it in here. So as you keep adding points, like for example, originally our formula went to AB4, and so Ishika has 14 points. But if I change my sum to AC4 to include my new meeting, it should now give her 15 points, which, as you can see, it does. So again, and then when you do that, when you change that sum total, same thing. If you just take that and drag it down, so if we did this right, Corey's number should change to 8 because we know she got a point from the meeting. And you can see it did. So it's changed it. So now she has 8 points. So now the Google Sheet is taking into account the fact that we've now added an additional row to our meeting. So the easiest way to do that is just when you add another row here to count for points, just in your formula in the meeting total, So instead of saying AB, well, shoot, now I've done AC, and go on. And then when you add the next row, change it to AD, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that is pretty much it. If you have questions, come see Mr. Shore, as long as Park Hill hasn't fired me by then. Thank you.